Before the truth comes the betrayal. Before betrayal. Stories you will never forget.
I still remember the sound of the socket wrench slipping from my hand and clattering against the concrete floor. It was sharp, metallic, almost violent. It echoed off the walls of my workshop and sank into the quiet between my heartbeat and my thoughts. I stood there, grease on my hands, chest tightening, phone pressed to my ear, listening to my father's voice tear into me through the speaker. "You're still wasting your life under that hood," he said. His tone half mocking, half disappointed. "You're 31, Claire. Not 16, playing with toy cars." I didn't answer right away. My eyes fell on the faded photograph taped above my workbench, the one of me and him when I was a kid, sitting on his lap in his old Chevy truck. He was grinning then, hand on the steering wheel, proud. Back before everything turned into some kind of quiet, cold competition neither of us admitted to. "I'm not wasting it, Dad," I finally said, swallowing hard. "This shop is mine. I built it." He snorted. "Built what? A life that smells like oil and failure. A garage full of other people's junk. You could have done something with that brain of yours, Claire. Something real." That was the thing about my father. He always managed to make his love sound like disappointment. I hung up before he could say more. The silence that followed felt heavy. Outside, the late December wind howled through the cracked window panes, carrying with it the faint smell of snow and diesel from the street. I turned back to the car under the tarp, a '68 Mustang fastback. Midnight blue. The one I'd spent the last year restoring in secret. Not for a client. For him. It started as a broken shell I'd found rotting behind a junkyard fence. I'd bought it for almost nothing, hauled it home on a trailer, and told myself I was doing it for the challenge. But that wasn't true. Every bolt, every weld, every patch of sanded paint. I did it for my father. For that little girl inside me who still believed that if she fixed something beautiful enough, maybe she could fix the space between us too. But somewhere along the way, I started noticing things that didn't fit. Like the calls my mom would end abruptly when I walked into the room. Or the way she'd go quiet when my dad's name came up. They'd been married 38 years, and though they bickered, they'd always been solid. Or so I thought. The first real crack showed the night before Thanksgiving. I was at their house, wiping the counter while Mom scrolled through her phone, her reading glasses slipping down her nose. A soft smile played on her lips. Too soft, too young. "Who are you texting?" Tease. She jumped a little, fumbling to lock her screen. "Just a friend from church," she said too quickly. Her cheeks flushed pink. That was odd, but I let it go. She deserved her privacy. Still, something about her tone, it lingered. A week later, I was under the Mustang, tightening the rear axle bolts, when my phone buzzed. It was a message from Dad. "Can you drop by the house this weekend? Need your help with something." I drove over that Saturday, expecting maybe he wanted help with the snowblower or the gutters. But when I pulled into the driveway, there was another car parked beside his truck, a sleek, silver Lexus. I didn't recognize it. Inside, I found him in the kitchen, sipping coffee, his eyes tired. "Hey, Claire," he said. "Thanks for coming." He looked smaller somehow, shoulders rounded like something had worn him down. "What's up?" I asked, setting my gloves on the counter. He hesitated, glancing toward the living room where I could hear soft laughter, Mom's, and a man's voice. Froze. Dad rubbed his temple. "Your mother invited a friend. Some guy from her book club, apparently." The words didn't land right. Book club. My mom's book club consisted of 2 retired teachers who drank wine and complained about their husbands. "I don't know what's going on," he said under his breath. "But something feels wrong. She's different lately." Smiles at her phone. Leaves the room to take calls. "It's like she's somewhere else." The sound of laughter floated back again, light and unfamiliar. I wanted to say something comforting, but the truth was, I'd noticed it too. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake replaying their voices, their faces. My parents had been my constant, my proof that love could endure all storms. If even they were unraveling, what did that mean for the rest of us? Over the next few weeks, the air in their house grew colder. Conversations turned cautious. My mom avoided eye contact with me, and my dad became quiet in a way that scared me more than his anger ever had. I buried myself in work, sanding, painting, aligning, trying to lose myself in the rhythm of restoration. But no matter how many parts one polished, the thought gnawed at me. Something was breaking and I couldn't stop it. Then, 2 days before Christmas, it happened. I dropped by to bring them gifts. Mom was alone in the living room, phone pressed to her ear, whispering. I froze in the hallway when I heard her say it. I can't wait to see you again, Mark. Mark. Her voice was soft, intimate, too intimate. My heart lurched. I stepped back, accidentally hitting the side table. The sound startled her. She turned, eyes wide, phone clutched to her chest. Claire, she breathed. You scared me. Who's Mark? I asked quietly. Her lips parted, searching for words. He's just a friend. But her face told me everything. I felt the world tilt. The woman who'd spent her whole life teaching me about honesty, about loyalty. She was lying to me. Does Dad know? Her eyes glistened. It's complicated. I wanted to scream. Instead, I whispered, You're having an affair, aren't you? She turned away, covering her face. It's not what you think. I left before she could explain. My hands were shaking so hard I nearly dropped my keys. I sat in my truck for a long time, staring at their front door, trying to process what I'd just heard. By the time I got back to the shop, the sky had gone dark. I pulled off my coat, grabbed a rag, and started wiping down the Mustang's hood even though it was already spotless. The reflection staring back at me looked like someone I didn't recognize. Someone angry, hollowed out. I'd built that car for him, for my father, to heal something broken. But now I knew it wasn't just pride or distance that needed fixing. It was betrayal itself, bleeding through the seams of our family. On Christmas Eve I called Dad. I have something for you, I said. Can you come by tomorrow morning? He sounded surprised. Sure. You okay, kiddo? Yeah, I lied. That night I barely slept. My thoughts kept circling back to Mom, to that soft tone in her voice when she said his name. Mark. I kept wondering how long it had been going on. If Dad suspected. If she'd ever planned to stop. The next morning I opened the garage door early. Snow dusted the street outside, glowing orange under the sunrise. The Mustang gleamed beneath the lights, the chrome bumpers polished, the leather seats reupholstered, the engine purring like a heartbeat. When Dad arrived, his breath caught. Jesus, Claire, he whispered. Is that yours? I said softly. He walked around it slowly, hand trembling as he ran his fingers along the hood. I don't know what to say. I smiled faintly. Just say you're proud. He looked at me, then really looked. For a moment the old warmth was back. But then his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, frowned. It's your mother, he muttered, then declined the call. His jaw tightened. What's going on between you two? Asked. He sighed heavily, eyes falling to the floor. You should talk to her. I did, I said quietly. His head snapped up. What do you mean? She's seeing someone, Dad. The words fell like a stone between us. He didn't move at first, just stared at me. Then he laughed once, a hollow, disbelieving sound. You're mistaken. I heard her, Dad. I heard her say his name. His face went pale. Who? Mark. He stumbled back, leaning against the car. For a moment I thought he might collapse. Mark, he repeated, voice shaking. That bastard. My stomach turned. You know him. He nodded slowly. Used to work with me. Years ago. I introduced them. I felt the air leave my lungs. He ran a hand through his hair, eyes wet. She used to talk about him sometimes, but I thought it was harmless. Silence filled the garage, thick and heavy. I wanted to comfort him, to bridge the chasm that had opened between us, but I couldn't. I was too broken myself. He turned to the car again. His reflection warped across the shiny paint. "You spent all this time building something for me," he said softly. "And all I did was tear everything else down." I shook my head. "This isn't your fault." But I wasn't sure I believed it. Outside, snow began to fall harder, thick flakes catching in the wind. Dad stood there for a long time, staring at the Mustang as if it were the only thing holding him together. When he finally spoke again, his voice was quiet but resolute. "I need to confront her." I nodded, my throat tight. "Do you want me there?" He shook his head. "No. This is between us." As he left, I felt something inside me fracture, a cold, deep crack that no restoration could fix. That night, I sat in the dark garage, staring at the empty space where the Mustang had been, listening to the ticking of the cooling tools. Somewhere out there, my father was facing the truth I'd unleashed. And I wasn't sure any of us would survive what came next. The next morning felt wrong before the sun even rose. The air had that heavy, charged stillness, like a storm waiting to break. I didn't hear from my father all night. I barely slept, pacing the length of the garage until the shadows started to fade and gray light spilled through the windows. 7. My phone buzzed. It was him. "I talked to her," he said. His voice was raw, uneven. "Can you come by?" I didn't ask questions. I just grabbed my coat and drove. The snow from yesterday had hardened into a thin crust of ice, crunching under my boots when I stepped out in front of my parents' house. Their living room curtains were drawn shut. The front door stood slightly open. Inside, the air smelled like coffee and something else. Tension, sharp and bitter. Mom was sitting on the couch, her eyes red and puffy. Dad stood near the window, back turned, arms crossed so tightly his knuckles looked bloodless. The silence between them felt almost physical. "Dad," I said softly. He turned. His expression was empty, controlled in the way someone's face looks when they're trying not to explode. "She admitted it," he said. "It's been going on for almost a year." My stomach twisted. Mom flinched but didn't deny it. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she whispered. "You were gone all the time. We were strangers living under the same roof." Mark listened to me. "That's all it was at first." Dad let out a strangled laugh. "Listen to you. That's your excuse. You broke 38 years because someone listened." I stood frozen, unable to move, every word slicing deeper. Mom started crying harder. "I didn't mean for it to go this far." Dad's voice cracked. "You brought him into our house, Emily. You brought him into our lives." Her face crumpled. "I was lonely, Tom." The room went silent again, except for the faint ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. It felt obscene, the sound of time continuing when everything else had stopped. I wanted to leave to give them space, but then Dad turned toward me, his eyes blazing with something that scared me more than anger. "You knew," he said quietly. "I found out 2 days ago," I whispered. He stepped closer. "And you told me anyway." "Yes." His jaw trembled. "Do you have any idea what that did to me?" I didn't answer. Couldn't. He looked at me like he was searching for someone else in my face, someone he used to know. Then his gaze softened, just for a second. "No. You did the right thing," he said. "You told the truth. That's more than your mother ever did." Mom let out a sob and buried her face in her hands. I felt tears stinging behind my eyes, but I fought them back. I wanted to hate her, but watching her crumble like that made me ache in ways I didn't expect. After a long silence, Dad grabbed his coat and keys. "I'm going for a drive." "Dad, it's snowing." He didn't answer. The front door slammed behind him. I watched from the window as he walked down the path, climbed into the Mustang and started the engine. The sound of it, deep, throaty, alive, filled the cold morning air. For a moment I felt proud again, then terrified. Mom reached for me. "Claire." "Don't," I said, stepping back. "Don't make excuses." "Not now." Her face fell. "I know I've hurt him. But I didn't mean to hurt you too." I stared at her. "You hurt both of us." And for what? To feel wanted. She didn't answer. Just looked down, defeated. The sound of the Mustang faded down the street. Hours passed before he came back. When he did, the car was dusted with snow, headlights still glowing faintly as he pulled into the driveway. He got out slowly, his face pale but calm, like someone who had crossed through fire and come out the other side burned but whole. He came inside, brushed the snow from his coat and said quietly, "I went to see him." Mom's head snapped up. "You what?" "I told him to stay the hell away from this family," Dad said flatly. And he did. He packed up his things and left town. She covered her mouth with her hands, tears spilling again. "Tom!" He cut her off with a raised hand. "Don't. There's nothing left to say." I stood between them, my heart pounding. What happens now? He didn't look at me. Now we try to survive the mess. That week felt endless. Dad moved into the guest room. Mom barely spoke. I came by every day, fixing what I could around the house, pretending the sound of silence didn't hurt as much as it did. And every evening I'd see Dad outside in the driveway, sitting in the Mustang with the engine idling, headlights cutting through the dark. Sometimes he didn't even drive it. He'd just sit there, hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. One night I went out to him. The air was cold enough to sting my lungs. He didn't look at me when I slid into the passenger seat. "She said she's sorry," I said quietly. He nodded once. "Doesn't matter. You still love her, don't you?" He exhaled slowly, watching the snow fall through the windshield. "I don't know what I feel anymore. Maybe I always loved the version of her I thought she was." I stared at the dashboard lights reflecting off his face. He looked old, not just in years but in spirit, like he'd run out of road. After a moment he turned to me. "You know, I used to think your job was beneath you. That fixing cars wasn't enough. But now," he paused, voice cracking, "now I get it. You fix what other people break. You bring things back to life. I should have been proud all along." Tears blurred my vision. "I did this car for you, Dad. Because I wanted to give you something beautiful again." He smiled faintly. "You did. You really did." We sat there in silence for a long time, the hum of the engine filling the space between us. For the first time in years, we didn't need to say anything more. But the story didn't end there. 2 months later, my mother had a stroke. It was sudden, no warning, no time to prepare. She survived, but it left her weak, half her body paralyzed. I was at the hospital every day, watching her struggle to speak, to move, to ask for forgiveness she couldn't put into words. And Dad, he never left her side. He fed her, brushed her hair, sat by her bed reading old letters she'd written him when they were young. Sometimes she'd cry, and he'd just hold her hand. One night, as I stood in the doorway watching them, I asked quietly, "How can you do it? After everything?" He didn't take his eyes off her. "Because love isn't about what's fair," he said. "It's about what you choose when everything else is gone." Those words stayed with me. When Mom finally came home, Dad drove her there himself, in the Mustang. The same car I built to bridge our distance became the thing that carried them through what was left of their lives together. I often think about that Christmas now. About how I thought betrayal would destroy us forever. And in some ways it did. Things were never the same. But in the ruins, something unexpected grew. A fragile, stubborn kind of grace. My father stopped mocking my work. In fact, he started helping at the garage sometimes, handing me tools, listening, even laughing again. The day he passed, years later, I found a note in the glove box of the Mustang. His handwriting was shaky but unmistakable. "Claire, this car reminded me that anything broken can be rebuilt if someone loves it enough. You were right, you did build something real. Thank you for teaching me that." I sat there for a long time, reading those words over and over, the sound of the engine faintly ticking in the silence. And for the first time, I didn't feel like that little girl trying to prove herself anymore. I felt like someone who had finally restored something that mattered. Not just a car, not just a relationship, but a family. Even if the scars never faded, they gleamed under the light, like chrome.